how this is enabled. Basically, to enable the steps in the environment for main, we have to do this. See, it says enable steps there? You see that? Okay, that's associated with the environment. And you'll notice that you check it. If you check it, it's going to update these steps. It's going to update, tell the agents when these steps are occurring.
What if we didn't enable specify what we do in the agent? Then it could just ignore it?
So in other words, if you did this, but you didn't select the steps, it would just ignore it. I believe that's the case. I mean, you could do an experiment, but I'm pretty confident that's the case. Another question which I'm not answering is, could you mix together discrete and continuous time? Have steps, but also have things between the steps? I think the answer is yes, although I've never done it in a while. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this, I want to go through the dark underbelly. The belly of the beast of discrete time. And here you go. There's two things. And this is a classic pattern. Ladies and gentlemen, this was something that I saw 21 years ago with some other code, working with cellular automata, in a totally different framework. This is something which transcends AnyLogic. It's something that's the nature of having these requirement of synchronous updating. So just before you update anyone, you collect the information from everyone you need to update, okay? So for each agent, this is code now for each agent, they're going to execute before anyone updates. It's on the step that people are going to update. So just before this step, each agent is going to compute the number of people around them that are alive. Each cell. It's going to compute the number of people around them, the number of cells around them that are alive. And that's what this code is going to do right there. And we'll see this in more detail in just a second. And then at the step, they're going to use that information they just collected before anyone else updated. And they're going to use that to change their own state, to change whether they're alive or not. See this alive thing? They're assigning to alive. In other words, they're saying, okay, am I alive or dead based on my previous state and based on the state of people around me. So here we go. On before step. Okay. But if you lock the door. So here, just before the step, before anyone has changed their situation, we can count on their state being a representation of the current time step, not yet updated to reflect the next time step. So just before that, for each agent, it's going to initialize this variable and alive or on. Where have we seen that variable, ladies and gentlemen? Where was that variable? We saw it. Yeah, it's associated with the cell. This is one of the variables associated with the cell. So this is just a temporary variable we're going to use to accumulate this information and remember it until we update ourselves. So we start, look, it's like we've got to count up the number around us. So we start with 0. Then we say, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So we start with 0, and for each of our neighbors, where have we seen neighbors before? Yeah, it's also a variable. We're just keeping track of our neighbors, right? That's this thing here. For each of these, we're going to go through and we're going to say, hey, are you alive? We're testing. Is it alive? And if so, we're going to, this plus plus adds 1 to that. So it's going up. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's going to go through. This thing here is just a loop through the neighbors. That's all this is. It's saying for each of the neighbors, call that neighbor A, then consider the first. Call him A. Is he alive? If so, count up 1. And if not, just continue on to the next one. Is that next one alive? If so, count up. And it's going to go through a 4. And incidentally, is it going to go through all 4? Is that guaranteed? That it's all 4? Could it be different than 4? Riddle me that. Could it be different than 4? Why might it be different than 4? Yeah. It's at the edge. It's at the edge. We'd have to go see how that's done in AnyLogic here. I believe that for this particular model, I believe that here the edges are considered to have just fewer neighbors. So, yeah, yeah. So a corner would have only 2 possible neighbors, right? Okay. So this loops through every time we see a neighbor, we increment this count. All this means is that's just, as we call it, syntactic sugar. All that says is n alive around equals n alive around plus 1. That's all that means. It's an old notation that goes back to the 1970s.
Does Java just know that A is the first one and
No.
define A as 0 or A as 1?
So what this is saying is for each of the neighbors, call each in turn. So go through this loop for each one in turn, giving A the name of whichever one is appropriate. So first, we'll go through this for the first one, calling that one A. And then it will go through it for the second one, calling that one A for that one. Go through it for the third one, calling that one A. And then the fourth one, and then it'll be done. Does that make sense? Okay. So this A is here. Now, this thing with cell, basically what that's saying is, okay, look, this is an agent here. And we want it to treat it as a cell, because we want to ask if it's alive. And not every agent has a aliveness property. We need to treat it as a cell, one of our types of agents that we've defined in this model. I know that this A is in my neighbors, that they're all cells, so I'm going to treat it like a cell and ask whether it's alive. That makes sense? Okay. So that's our little bit of code to collect the information. The whole job of this is before anyone changes their aliveness status around us, we want to gather all the information we're going to need to determine what we should do. So there's no funny business with halfway through when I'm doing this, somebody else already updated and I don't know what their state was, all I know is their new state. This allows us, everyone, to kind of look at the situation before, and now this is the on step. So that was on before step, before anyone updated. This is where people update. And this is the other part of the belly of the beast.